The Antichrist. Men, when the hour comes, in which, according to the divine will, the purification and winnowing must take place on earth, then watch for the predicted and partly supernatural signs in the sky. Do not then allow yourselves to be confused by those men and also churches who have already long ago surrendered to Antichrist. It is sad that until now not even the churches have known where to look for this Antichrist, although he has already been active among all men for so long. If they had only been a little on the alert, they must have recognized it. Who can possibly act in a more anti-Christian manner than those who at that time fought against Christ himself, and finally also murdered him? Who could have revealed themselves in a worse and also more obvious way as antagonistic to Christ? They were the leaders and representatives of earthly religion, and the true teaching of God, as revealed in and through the Son of God, did not agree with what they had built up. Indeed, the true message of God could not be reconciled with it, because the structure set up by priestly dignitaries was aimed at earthly influence, earthly power and expansion. They proved quite clearly thereby that they were servants of the human intellect, which is directed solely towards earthly knowledge and earthly power, and is hostile and obstructive to everything that lies beyond earthly comprehension. Now, since God remains completely outside the range of earthly intellectual knowledge, as also does the spiritual, the intellect is clearly the only real obstacle thereto. Thus, by its nature, it is opposed to all that is divine and all that is spiritual. And with it logically, therefore, all men who acknowledge their intellect as of paramount importance, and seek to build only upon that. The religious leaders of those days were afraid of losing influence among the people through the enlightenment of the Son of God. As everyone today knows, this was the main reason for the slanders they sought to spread against Christ, and ultimately also for the execution of the Son of God. They nailed him to the cross as a blasphemer of the very God by whom he was sent to bring enlightenment, and whose servants they professed to be. They tried to make people believe they were serving God. But how little did they really know this God and his will, for whose honor and earthly defense this Son of God, the divine messenger, was, however, murdered by them. This was clearly the disastrous result of their enslavement to the earthly intellect, which fought solely to maintain its influence thereby. They allowed themselves to become the executioner as tools of the Antichrist, whom they had secretly enthroned in their hearts. For this satisfied their human weaknesses, their presumption, arrogance, and vanity. Whoever expects clearer proof cannot be helped, for there is nothing more antagonistic to Christ, the Son of God, and his words. And indeed, Antichrist signifies the fighter against Christ, against man's redemption in God's message. The earthly intellect drove them to it. This very intellect, as a poisonous product of Lucifer, is an instrument for him which has become the greatest danger to mankind. Thus the disproportionate overdevelopment of the human intellect in the past has grown into the hereditary sin for man. Behind this, however, stands Lucifer himself, as Antichrist in person. He it is who through men was able to raise his head. He, the only real enemy of God. he acquired the name of Antichrist through his hostile struggle against the mission of the Son of God. None other would have had the strength and the power to become the Antichrist. And in his warfare against the will of God, Lucifer makes use not merely of one man on earth, but of nearly all mankind, thus leading them to destruction under the effect of the divine wrath. Whoever cannot grasp this most obvious fact, that only Lucifer himself could be the Antichrist who dares to oppose God, will never be able to understand anything of all that takes place outside the world of gross matter, that is, outside what is purely earthly. And as it was then, so is it still today, indeed far worse. Today, too, many religious representatives will wish to fight bitterly to maintain the earthly intellectual ordinances hitherto upheld in the temples and churches. It is precisely this human intellect, blunting all nobler intuition, that is one of the most insidious growths of Lucifer, which he was able to spread among mankind. All slaves of the intellect, however, are in truth Lucifer's servants, who are accomplices in the terrible collapse which must thus befall mankind. Since no one suspected that Antichrist lurked beneath the intellect, he could extend his sinister influence all the more easily. Lucifer triumphed, for he thereby cut off mankind from any comprehending of all that lies outside the world of gross matter, from real life, from that place where contact is first made with the spiritual, which leads to the proximity of God. With this he set his foot upon this earth, as Lord of the earth and of the greater part of mankind. No wonder then that he could penetrate to the altars, and that representatives of earthly religions, also of the Christian churches, were bound to become his victims. For they too expect the Antichrist just before the predicted judgment. Up till now the great revelation in the Bible, like many other things, has never yet been understood in this respect. The revelation says that this Antichrist will raise his head before the judgment, but not that he will first appear then. If it is said therein that he raises his head, this clearly indicates that he must be here already, but not that he is yet to come. It means that he will have reached the zenith of his dominion just before the judgment. Listen to this cry of warning, you who are not yet spiritually deaf and blind. Take the trouble for once to think quite seriously about it yourselves. If you remain indolent in this respect, you give yourselves up as lost. If you lift the protecting cover from the lair of a poisonous snake that suddenly realizes it is exposed, it will naturally try to rear up and bite this ruthless hand. It is no different here. Finding himself exposed, the Antichrist will quickly protest through his servants. On being unmasked, he will make a great outcry, and try in every possible way to maintain himself on the throne which mankind so willingly offered him. But all this he can only do through those who inwardly revere him. Therefore now keep a sharp watch on your surroundings when the conflict begins. By their very outcry you will all the more surely recognize them, everyone who belongs to him. For once again, as before, fear of a pure truth will make them side with its opponents. The Antichrist will again try desperately to retain his influence on earth. Observe his dubious methods in defense and attack, for he will once more make use only of slander and insinuations, since his followers are incapable of doing anything else. To stand before the truth and refute it is impossible. Thus Lucifer's servants will also fight the messenger of God, just as they once fought the Son of God. Be on the alert where such an attempt is made, for thereby such people only wish to protect Lucifer in order to uphold his reign on earth. A centre of darkness lurks there, even if the people habitually appear in bright earthly garments, even if they are servants of a church. Do not forget what happened when the Son of God was on earth, but reflect that still today the same Antichrist, with a far greater human following, is striving to retain dominion over the earth, to escape destruction, and to go on obscuring the true will of God. Therefore watch carefully for all the promised signs. Each individual must make his final decision: salvation or destruction. For this time it is God's will that everything which again dares to oppose him shall be lost. Every act of negligence will rise up against you in the judgment. The divine insignia will not appear above some church, nor will any priestly dignitary on earth bear the sign that he is the messenger of God, but only he who is inseparably linked with the signs, who therefore also carries them living and radiating with him, as once the Son of God did when he dwelt on this earth. They are the cross of truth, living and radiating within him, and the dove above him. They will become visible to all those who are blessed to see spiritual things, so that they may give testimony of it to all people on earth. For there will be among all peoples those who will this time be permitted to see as the last grace of God. These sublime signs of the holy truth can never be simulated. Not even Lucifer, who must retreat before them, can achieve this, much less a human being. Therefore he who still seeks to set himself against these signs of God, henceforth sets himself against God, as an enemy of God. He shows thereby that he neither is nor ever was a servant of God, no matter what he has hitherto pretended to be on earth. Be on your guard, lest you also be found among such.